I love that line from Shakespeare's Hamlet that goes, "When sorrows come, they come not as single spies, but in battalions." It's Shakespeare's way of saying that when it comes to pain and sorrow, when it rains, it pours. And if you've been living in Australia this year, it certainly feels that way, doesn't it? First with the fires, then with the floods, and now with Corona as well. In fact, so much so that one Australian journalist has already dubbed 2020 as the year that God forgot. And I wonder if that's how you feel. And if not forgot, at least kept his distance, far from the mess we're in. Like he used to be called, the man upstairs, while we're stuck in the muck down here. See, I wonder if that's how you feel about God, especially this year. Because if it is, you might be surprised to hear, and you really need to know, that one of the most remarkable things about the Christian message is that none of those things are true when it comes to Jesus Christ. He is not a God who keeps his distance, safely stays away. He's not the man who sits upstairs. No, he's the God who came to us, to our mess, to our muck, to take them on himself, to our pain, to our shame, to take them both from us. And one of the places you see that most clearly is in the final words of Jesus recorded by Luke for us. As he goes to the cross to give his life for those who'll take his life. What does he say? He says, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." Father, forgive them, because that is why I've come. I think one of the most fascinating TED Talks I've ever heard, maybe you've heard it too, is the one by Matthew O'Reilly, the American emergency medic, the man whose job it is to be first on the scene of those who are losing their life, the man who's there in the final moments of so many as they die. And as he speaks of three patterns that he's observed again and again in those about to die. And what's the first of those? It's this. It's the need to be forgiven. The need to clear our guilt. Let me read it to you. Regardless of religious belief or cultural background, he says, there's always a need for forgiveness. Whether they call it sin or simply regret, their guilt is universal, he says. I don't know about you, but I think there are two things that are fascinating about that. The first is that the way it turns on its head, the way we want to believe that we are basically good. According to O'Reilly, when our death comes, so will the truth of our guilt. Second thing I find so fascinating is how different Jesus is. Did you see it? As he approaches death, as his last words are said. After all, what does he say? So unlike all those that O'Reilly has met, and unlike you and I as well. Not here's my regret, or here's my guilt, or please forgive me. No, what does Jesus say? He says, Father, forgive them. Father, forgive you. Father, forgive me. And all who will trust in him. Just as that criminal did you see it in the story we just had read, in that historical account from Luke? Jesus, remember me, he says, and Jesus says, I will. You see, I suppose it'd be easy this year, after this year we have, to think that God's forgotten us. That he stayed away as that man upstairs who refuses to enter our life. But can I say, if that's how you feel, and understandably so, please hear these words today. and see in Jesus the God who came near and entered the mess of our life. See in Jesus the one who died to bring the forgiveness we need. See in Jesus the one who'll remember all who trust in him. And then we pray, trust in him for the forgiveness we need from God.